Okay. Good. Today we're going to have a quick guest from Motion DAO, Jean. She's a artist, researcher, dance. She's from Paris, and I just stumbled, across her sharing about dynamic energy budget, while at the same time Nick was talking about the energy that we give each other, or that the energy that work takes, and so on. So I thought that definitely interesting. We should look into it. So I invited Jean. She had said yes.
I'm here somewhere.
Hey, fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. So
I don't know where I am.
In Omega.
My video. Okay, yes. Here it is.
Perfect. Hello. Just let me pull up the agenda that we have, an overview. Again, it's always packed. Never enough in 1 hour, but the goal is really to just get to know what you're doing or what you're planning as research with dynamic energy budget for art creation. And we had some exchanges about how art and sciences and the development of progress or the process is quite similar. And I'm hoping that we get some insights, get to know you, get to know your work. And but one second, here I am. So apparently my tab just crashed. Never happened. Okay, let me try again. All right, welcome. So our agenda for today, we have a quick intro, dynamic energy budget. Yvonne comes from art, but also is a researcher, so she vibes with sciences as well. And we're just curious how we can potentially test it in Omega, since we're also going to share some budget for not just food for thought, but also now funding from Token Engineering Commons. So it would be a good exercise for us. I had shared some links, just things that we thought that have been shared before in the working group Omega chat by Letty, by George, and this whole ecosystem flows goes energetic is one thing that I've been jamming with Nick, and very briefly, Nick and Justin. So these were the backdrop. So we have about 15 minutes or so, and from that we would love to go into this group facilitation, that we reflect how we worked together the past 10 months, what came out of it, these initiatives that we very much like, and how do we move that forward. There I have prepared a mirror board. We will go in there, no rush, and we see how far we get, and maybe we continue next week if we don't make it through. But I think many things are coming together. So with that, and without further ado, I would hand it over to Jean. Let's see if we see your screen. I can't hear you because you're muted still, or right now. Yes.
Okay. Hear me now?
Yes. And we can see your screen and we can hear you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Live thing, it's normal, yes, because I'm not used to share screen on Discord, so.
Yeah, this works well.
Okay, so it's just okay. So it's a bit okay. So my name is Jeanne. I'm based in Paris. I'm French. I've been working as a sustainability specialist for many years as a pioneer in sustainability at the time that this word wasn't existing, and I was doing my artistic work in the same time. And then I decided to switch to the artwork because I was it was a more free space for me to express my ideas and vision. So I'm working. My training is in dance and movement, and I've been into dance and technology. And especially because I was interested by the continuum between the body and the tech. I never understood why it was perceived as separated things, since we are made from the same atoms. And in the same way, in the same time, and since I think a teenager, so the project I'm going to share now is something that is inside my flesh, actually, that I never understood why, it's very basic, but at least recently I realized that I'm not at all the only one thinking this way. But I never understood why an artistic work wouldn't be just a normal work, a normal labor as anything else, and could be part of the economic system. And then, if I try to make it really short, then I was I don't know why I was involved in some art and academic projects, and I was really trying to figure out, what would be the economy of some art practice. So especially coming from my experience with interactive installation and performances. And I realized that actually when all the research that the artists do, most of the time, I mean, there's many different types of artists for sure, but all this research, you produce some knowledge that actually is not really shared and not valued. And I remember 10 years ago, I was presenting in an art and sustainability conference, a very serious academic international conference. And I was talking about that, saying artists do produce knowledge. And I remember that a very serious guy told me, no, it depends what you mean by knowledge. So this is, the thread I'm, in French we say, yes, the thread that you pull, that I'm pulling since my question as a teenager and until now. And the dynamic energy budget was thinking that I had really of trying, what is the economy of an art production and how come I don't have the time that is embedded into the estimation of value. For example, when you get money at the beginning of the project, this money is going to disseminate all the way through the end of the project. And actually it has much, much more value than the money that you get, for example, when you present a performance or an installation at the end of the project. But usually what you have is maybe some money for the presentation. And now if I want to I don't know what I'm sharing. I don't understand why it's like this. And I feel, okay, like this is maybe better. And can I... Sebnem, can you just give me one indication very shortly?
Yes, perfect. No, we see the website at the moment with the three boxes, challenge solution.
Yes. Okay, so so this is this window. So
while you're sorting, I just want to say, and I always, asked why, work can't be more creative or artistic, especially research and engineering. So definitely some common questions there.
Yes, and this is actually, when working in a very serious environment, I tested some of these ideas, and it was working. So anyway, so this was a way to present this dynamic that was inspired by. So maybe Sebnem talked to you about it, by this biology theory model, and I'm going to show you more after it. Try to make it really short. And so for the kernel community, so you're aware of this environment, I guess?
Yeah, some Nick is also in kernel, by the way, and I believe some from Token Engineering Commons have been there as well. Yeah, the kernel community.
Okay. So from this idea of the dynamic energy budget, but I thought that I shouldn't talk too much about this now, but more about the questions I have. And I tried to, for the kernel, to present it as like a Web3 project. And this is how we say, like it's a platform for empowering art science collaboration. It's a place where you really have true interdisciplinary project, and where you have art-based research that is presented as a research project, like so basically inspired by decentralized science. And why I came with this idea that it really has some value, it's because, and then I'm going to, if I can switch windows, I'll try to go to my Miro board.
And actually, you made that link to decentralized science already, right? Maybe later on I get that link from you or share as well, because that's also definitely something that is going on in token engineering. We should connect.
Okay, so in token engineering, you have this thinking of...
well, it's pretty much decentralized, yes, and it's about discovering the processes and the tools, but also research for token engineering, decentralized autonomous organizations, how we coordinate around value, the tooling, everything. And it is very, very decentralized.
And yes, exactly. And there's a lot of writings about there's a lot of writings about the similarity between research creation and science creation. It's not it's a serious thing. So maybe I just I don't know how to share my Miro board. I don't understand why. How come
maybe if you choose. If you
change, I'm going to stop and start again, maybe.
Exactly, and then choose whole screen. Then might be easier. And in the meantime, there was another thought that came up, but now I lost it. Sorry.
Okay, so what I want to say is that it's really serious, because you have, and I've been witnessing that there's so many
you briefly saw it.
No, so you saw it now or not?
Yes, now we see it.
Now you see it, okay. So the EU very seriously is publishing a lot of calls for artists to get involved into some art science projects. They identified very clearly that artists is the solution for climate justice. I heard like top level CEO 500 companies, etc., etc. So that really makes sense. This idea that it's a disruptive, but you're already convinced, I think, at least Sebnem for sure. So then I just would like to dig a little bit for a few minutes into these ideas that I'm trying to structure. About what does it mean? What would be an economy based by a metabolism, inspired by this notion of metabolism? I also want to say that this is something that is not new. You have an architect architecture trend in Japan, an international architecture trend from the 60s that was called metabolism architecture, with the same type of spirit, you know. And also what and I want to first maybe show you yes and also when I see, I mean, yesterday at Kernel, I was in a meeting on regenerative ecology. And actually, I was a bit surprised that disruptive thinking, you know, wasn't there while it was supposed to be very front end. So then it confirmed to me that digging into this idea, it make really sense. So the what is depth theory? This drawing is really came from from a paper from some biologist. You know, it's not me, and this is what was my inspiration for the other drawing that you see to the right. And it's really this idea that you take from the ecosystem and you give back to the ecosystem. And sometimes when you see the little incubation, periods, it's a time where you don't take and you don't give. It's kind of simple. And Sebnem found a much better drawing, which is this one that probably talks to computer scientists, and that I would like to adapt. And from that, this is what to me is really important in the way we redefine value in a metabolism-based ecosystem. Is that what does it mean to value the experience rather than the transaction? The idea of relation. And I don't know if you're familiar with this philosopher called Edouard Glissant. And also the idea of energy, you know, redefining energy today. And for me, these three ideas are really important as a way to rethink about what would be a value in a metabolism environment. So the question of what is really interesting to me is that when I see some philosophers, so first, the question of experience, when you are an artist, you definitely work to create experience, even if you are a painter. And so someone like Picasso, it's very clear, he's creating experience. When you are doing, you are creating an installation or a performance, it's more obvious. You have some sociologists who talked about it, saying, you know, that artistic experience are by definition multidimensional and complex, because when when someone, you know, it talks to different senses, it talks to the intellect, it talks to the feeling. And if you think about aesthetics, for example, and this I also found it in an article that Sebnem you shared with me a while ago, you know, that the idea that aesthetics actually is what is, is a pattern that connect. You understand that, yes? The aesthetics is something that you might recognize, or you might recognize yourself into this pattern, and there's a connection because of that. And and you know, like mirror neuron, etc. So the question of where do we meet, and I was thinking about it before, is redefining the notion of frontier totally, 150%. And so the idea that you have someone that is separated to you, and that you might, transact. This is a fiction that was working for industrial society, that we are still irritating from that. But it's not what we're going to be in the next 1,000 years. But we can get inspiration from traditional knowledge. And this is where Edouard Glissant is amazing. I mean, I want to study him much more. But what I found that was really so strong is that actually so I try to be clear, and I'm probably not so clear, but I'm happy to come back, and I will, continue to dig in. Is the idea that so Edouard Glissant, this philosopher who died a few years ago, is French, is from the Caribs, and he talks about he talks also about the frontier, saying that there's no frontier and there's not some continuity. Yes, what he said is that it's a diverse totality and not a unity. So he talks about discontinuity and how it's you can create a relation, in this way. And so I'm not 100% clear, but I continue anyway. And what I want to say in this, yes, Sebnem?
No, I maybe just to note that that is, exactly how we collaborate. I think that goes into how we relate to each other, and maybe how we cannot relate to each other because of perceived differences. And I think it's very deep, and I think that's the exact area that we should go into more. Is definitely something that needs to be researched. But I would say that this group is also definitely interested in figuring it out, or just playing with these notions, and especially with the boundary.
Because so the question of boundaries,
just to add, because when we talk about knowledge exchange, it might become very philosophical, but actually you experience it yourself. Or one of you just mentioned it, at some point you don't know who gave you an idea or where it originated. You might trace it back or not, but at the end, it's not about tracing back an attribution as much as it's about actually jumping knowledge together. That's the Tokenized Ring, Consilience, library project. So there are many points of resonance, but I'm thinking that those will be very, very deep. So maybe if you want to give one highlight, also like where do you want to go next, or
okay. So I just want to give this sentence like about that our environment is neither objective or not subjective but trajective. But I'm happy to I will dig in and make it closer to the project. So I'm happy to share this with you in the future. Where I want to go next, actually, I'm doing all this and maybe I should have introduced myself this way, also to work with my artistic research, which is the impact of light pollution on human imagination. And I'm creating a link between light pollution and surveillance society, working with light pollution labs. The idea of this project is that it can be an artistic project in itself before becoming like a real platform. So then having an artistic project that would unlock interdisciplinary artistic research as a Web3 platform that can also be an inspiration for non-artistic projects also. And yes, the next step is that I really would love to have more people to work with, and from kernel to create a team, and maybe like it can be either a serious project or artistic project, but still serious. It just give more freedom, actually.
Super cool, but definitely currently in more the gestation, or you have applied it before and now you're basically forming it into something like a roadmap.
Sorry, I didn't.
Oh, sorry. Like,
what did you say? Last sentence.
No, I was just recapping that you had also some experiences with this, and now you're bringing it more onto something that others can relate to, maybe. Yeah, that they can also use, and what that use will be. That is what you're currently figuring out with others. And also, anyone, please, if you have a few questions or one question or more, don't hesitate to ask now. Or yeah.
Yes, I want to make a reflection on this non-locality thing. This is what is talking to me the most, like the experience of the artist and this French thing of being like in this beauty and you just get awestruck. But for me, like it's talking to me this non-locality thing that we are just creating together, and this is like the weaving of the energy, like being experiential about this mirror patterning. So this is like, I think the consciousness which is coming here, and maybe it's the pattern that is within our exploration here is like being able to bring to the light this non-locality thing. So this is what is most important for me right now. And I'm in London now.
I kind of wanted to even resonate more with that, because like this is actually what kind of in a roundabout way brought me over here is this so I read the article Connective Intelligence of Life, and even in that framing, you know, I wanted to like put intelligence and creativity, like they're the both halves of the same side, and like that connecting with people, that intersection of intelligence and creativity that happens when we get you know, when we connect with people and we resonate with an idea. And that William Burroughs and Brian Gibson had a phrase, a third mind that rises out of the two people collaborating with each other. And that having words and having ways to express it, and to go back to what the speaker was saying about art, right? To convey that experience of maybe something we don't have words for. And I think that's the space in which I want to explore and see if there's cross-pollination of what I'm thinking, and that like our work that we do creatively and like how maybe through that, working through our language of how do we discuss this stuff, or how do we mentally map it in our own head, and that like notes that we take. I even find that sharing that as an artist to people, like I don't really, I mean, I take abstract, I call them like poetic notes, but like framing them a little bit and sharing that with somebody, like finds value in that maybe like I kind of just like, because I'm looking at the bigger picture, that like, oh, I have all these random notes everywhere. And then like later I try to compile it in, but sometimes the process helps. But anyways, that's why I'm here, and to like connect and add my.
Thank you. Thank you, Satori, for sharing.
Yeah, there's something that you just said that made me think of something. The question that I was dealing with this time is how to represent, how to interpret the non-representational regarding with light pollution. That's like something, if you talked about abstraction, that's something that I don't have an answer to, but like get out of this kind of regimes of interpretation and pleasure, and to come into a space where it's about the interpretation of the non-representational. Maybe it sounds really way off, but that's something that I'm breaking my mind over lately.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's not a representation. It's an experience from your human beings, your body. And
so even if you don't have words for or concepts for that.
Okay, so I want to say something really important in terms of words, is that so what I have in mind, and of course I'm totally open, but what I really have in mind is to have this like new economic system that would be first considered as an artistic project, because then it's more easily free and open. You know, you can be more imaginative. We are lacking the words. You're right. We are lacking the words to conceive what is not conceivable until today. And this is my experience from yesterday. That another way of thinking to economy is not understood because people don't have the word, or maybe they are not as, I don't know, they don't have, I mean, I feel totally out of place all the time. And so they
say it. Maybe we're lacking the imagination, and maybe that's what we need to revive first. So I'm fully in, and I think everyone, please engage also in the chat if you have any more questions or you want to share something that resonated now, or oftentimes it's the next day that ideas come to mind. Share them in the chat. And Jean, now you're also know where we hang out. Or if not, I will just make the connections and so on. I just want to move on to the next point, because number one, that you see, like, what is this group try? Also, you know, we're coming up with this work style, or how we worked until now. It's really valuing, creating space for emergence. You know, we could say, okay, let's figure out. It's about token engineering, ethics, but also ethos. It was a fascinating experience to be in this community since the start, and we're a global community. People come from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of life experiences, age, what have you. Like, I was never in such a diverse environment, and people resonate very, very strongly with token engineering, the script economics flower, the transdisciplinarity of it, the rabbit hole in the middle. You know, that people survive and come out alive and have some epiphanies. So kind of things bring us together, and there are many things that we're experiencing, I think, not just intellectually, but very much so. And this working group set out with this huge question, you know, how do we figure out the ethics, token engineering ethics? Who owns token engineering ethics? Are we just going to postulate 10 principles and everyone adhere by them? Are we going to police it? And one of the participants somewhere brought this phrase. It goes back to developmental work as well. And be adapted at who owns token engineering ethics. And obviously, every participant, no matter where and how and in which role or with which action, should own token engineering ethics, number one. So that's why we started with a participatory action research and want to continue it. I'm just going to share, and if I hope everyone has the agenda, because at the very least you will need to go to this is not it. You will need to go to the Miro board, which is linked there.
Sebnem, I tried to enter Miro.
Today I am overburdening Discord. Let me try again.
Sebnem, to access Miro board, I requested access. Could you give it?
I've just given you access, right?
Thank you.
Sebnem, I'm not sure if you're talking, but we cannot hear you.
Sebnem, do I stay? Do I go? I have no link.
I think she mentioned that you could stay if you were interested in like taking part in this, but I will post a link to the mirror board on the Omega channel.
Okay. Okay, on the Omega channel. Okay, thank you.
The chat one, yes.
Yeah, yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, impossible to share. If anyone else wants to try and share, so that maybe, oh, we don't have a recording today, anyways, or do we? No, we don't. So, anyways, if you are all in the
I am
SG mat.
recording the call.
Oh, okay, you are okay. So, then I don't know. Nick, can you try and share your screen if that works? More people are coming in. David
Yes, I can try. I am somewhere public though, so my internet might.
Oh, okay.
Point.
I don't know. Every time I try and share the Discord or the tab crashes.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Great.
And in the meantime, more people coming in just then. So does everyone see where I am at? We are in this working group, Omega working style discovery. And likely we will only go over what is it that we want to do here. And that might be okay, and we can take it offline. That everyone basically shares their experience and how chaotic, complex, or clear which working areas or which tasks you felt were. That would be great that we capture that, and yeah. So, okay. So everyone, then basically, especially for the ones who are longer here, but also the ones who are new, don't hesitate to pick one of these yellow dots here in the first stop. Yeah, first of all, congratulations. Most of you danced in complex systems for over a year. Well, not that much, 10 months. So today, if you think about your experience or where you are today, literally, maybe rehash a bit. Do you feel like you had a lot of false starts? Are you frustrated? Do you feel resistance or still anxiety, not knowing where to start, confusion, or do you feel some change with respect to our work that we did together? And that can be very generic, like do you feel change in your understanding or how you relate? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just happy that I've been able to contribute in some way, given how busy and multitasking that I am. So I think I always feel like I'm in a perpetual state of false starts, but it's not really, this isn't like my full-time gig or anything. I just kind of show up and Like I always say,
Yeah.
give unsolicited advice, but you know, yeah, I appreciate that this is here. You know.
Yeah, but you realize like even those little contributions are actually 80% of the sport, and it helped a lot. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
The input for the sport, and especially for this first stop, is from Durgadas, and also hopefully we get to it. The one technique we want to apply, the liberating structured agreement and certainty matching matrix. It's also well, Durgadas brought it in. Okay, so
Yeah,
we have.
where's the rest of it? Did it not make sense to have the rest of it?
What do you mean, the rest of it? Oh no, I'm just going to open it up. See? Ta-da!
Okay, yeah, because it makes a lot more sense when you. I put that in as a way to diagnose, you know, potential problems, you know, that might exist.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, you know, take the whole picture off, just to see, just so people can just tell their emotion or what they feel. But actually, this big picture is quite nice, isn't it? It's basically it's a model. Every model is wrong. Some are useful, and I think this one is useful in that regard, that it might help to actually discern what are the causes of those feelings. And you know, when you think about it, like what you put in there, where you located yourself, and what this big picture says, why it might be, do you agree? Like, and you know, I'm asking the group, but especially if you feel like it resonates or it's totally off, it's not why you feel resistance, because incentives are lacking or so, then also please speak up. But would be great to hear in either case. Who wants to share?
Yeah, this is David. I think it's great. This whole thing. I think it really kind of crystallizes, at least in my mind, how you get to these different emotions. Like, you know, you blocked it off, and I immediately went to false start, and then you open it up, and it's like, oh, okay, the blacked out part is action plan, and that's kind of how my default is, right? I always want to be doing something and moving forward in a certain direction, and you know, that's not so helpful when you don't really completely understand the vision. So maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse, but yeah, I think this really captures very nicely
Cool.
how I'm feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's also cool to hear or to see, and also I believe many people will have their reasons. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
And Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think you said something, and I don't know. I didn't hear.
Sorry,
what
maybe
you said.
having you all keep breaking up.
Oh yeah, we're having technical difficulties.
Okay. So yeah, definitely, and I can also imagine that it differs from person to person, right? Like someone might need an action plan, whereas others need for some things really incentives, skills, yeah, that might, you know, hold someone back, some other not at all. That's also something. I don't know. Does anyone else want to share? Or you know, if this model doesn't make any sense, but you might want to share.
I will just say that I would just kind of say that the name of this thing is managing complex change, right? So in some sense, this is about methodology for working, in the complexity, from the Cynefin standpoint. So just FYI.
So, how do you feel like, or where did you put where did you locate yourself? Okay.
I am looking at the graphic right now because I think we developed this as a way to have a compass of our interior and say, okay, where is the blockages here? What are the things we are not seeing, and which leads to all this panoply of emotions here. But if you feel like you can cross this diagonal in black, it is like you can emerge through the other side and you can have all the colors at the same time. So I'm just positioning myself in the diagonal black, and then I feel, okay, I was in black and now I can see.
So it would be super cool. We don't have to go through it now, but I think at first just to have an idea where everyone is. And it seems like people agree with this. Like it could be something we take. So Dave definitely said, hey, this makes sense. It's actually, I need an action plan, and that's why I failed. I had false starts, or the group has false starts. So that's fine. And but still, if you are inclined to give more feedback also later on in the chat, that's really helpful. Without concrete feedback, we basically are driving blind. We're improvising still. So, and the next area, basically, if you go to the second, and that might take a while, okay? But maybe you had a chance to look at it before. These are the 7 principles of sociocracy. I just took them because these are things that are important to Token Engineering Commons, but of course to many other complex organizations that aren't just hierarchical setups. And again, it's a model to help us maybe articulate things better or pinpoint areas where we need improvement today or tomorrow. That would be super cool if you can, again, take a dot and try and go through what is important to you, which you should focus on improving moving forward. And if possible, really just one thing, if that is possible.
I'm having a serious resistance moment because I have an overload of information coming in, so I'm trying to understand like what's the idea here, because it feels like this is very overwhelming. So
I know, and maybe like people who've been longer and maybe they can better locate, because maybe they have been feeling the pain points more. But and that's why I shared this before. Yeah, like if you need time to, if you're seeing it for the first time and you didn't have a chance to follow the links that were in the agenda before, don't rush it. Okay. And also, don't rush it, and you don't have to go through everything. We're trying to collect as much signals as possible, right?
Yeah, it looks really, really nice, but I put myself in resistance just because of this. I need to complain about something, you know?
Ah, you mean one up? Okay, okay. So okay, that's a feedback too. So you feel resistance to act, and let's say, is it because incentives are missing?
No, I was leveraging between frustration because of lack of time, and resistance is just because the amount of information is very, how to
Yeah.
say, it's very much worked through, like a thing for more things to learn.
Yeah.
Which I like a lot, but I need to take my time for it.
Well, maybe it'd be good to
And
look at it. Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Nick.
Maybe it'd be good to look at it not just from the perspective of the TEC, which you may not necessarily be familiar with because you're new or newer. Maybe you could just think about like which of these triggers you the most, and then you can just place a post-it there because in a way it'll affect your future moving forward if it triggers you. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'll try.
Yeah, but I think he's making a valid point because when we were talking about the potential points of failure, we talked about over engineering and overwhelming people and of the possible users. So I think that's a valid point. Like when you're overwhelmed by beauty or by information, you need just to cool down a little bit. So I think that's great to hear that.
Yeah, but I don't see it as from. I don't think it's like a critique. It's not something towards the work that's been done. It's just something that I notice. It's my personal state. So don't take it as like there's something wrong with the board because it looks like really, really cool. I just need to take more time to kind of digest it and this kind of things.
I guess I would like to share my own processing of it because I'm new too, and I kind of, I guess, when I was in the group the other day and I saw the flower model, the thermodynamic flower model, I was like, oh, I like this, and I saved it. I'm like, I'm gonna use this, and then I saw this. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I'm thinking of it like in my own head and like recombine it in my head. I was like, oh, this explains a lot of the dynamics between me and my friends and why we don't complete certain projects on various different points, and that we all kind of like flow through the different various points of like maybe in one project where we had the skill set for it, but then maybe not some of the other stuff and all this kind of stuff. So it helped me to kind of map out more stuff in my own head to see how I could use it in navigating, coordinating with my own creative team.
Cool. And with respect to this being overwhelmed, I feel that that's my, and I'm in token engineering since 2018, really saying I am committing. It's a natural state of being. I don't know how you can, go full into the transdisciplinary and actually want to come out at the other end with something that can be engineered and implemented and deployed on a world computer and not be overwhelmed. Because so my resistance personally is, okay, I have to take this because otherwise we're going to end up in these simple models that the world is fed up with. Yeah. But I really, really want to figure out how we can make this, less stressful, If it's stressful, I don't know if it was stressful.
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, no, please go ahead.
For me, for me, I guess details are easy, right? And the thing that I've always struggled with because I think what happens because of the cultural context in which we live in a reflexively decontextualized and decontextualizing culture, right?
Mm.
And so,
Mm.
in some way, I feel like cryptocurrency is a response to an attempt to contextualize and decentralize. See, decontextualization is the problem. Contextualization is the solution. If centralization is the problem, then decentralization is the solution. Do you see what I'm saying? So for me, all of these principles kind of stack up one on top of the other. So if I'm going to decentralize, I also have to contextualize, right? And so the reason why I kind of try to bring all these mental models in is as a balm against this almost perpetual pathogenic, decontextualization, right? Now, at the same time, you can go too far with that and overwhelm yourself. So there's kind of a practical balance you have to strike between those two things, and make sure you're not falling into a trap of getting overcommitted.
Mm.
I think we all do that, but my point is, by presenting some of these things, is never to do that, but just to give you a mental model into which you can maybe find some way of saying, oh, okay, I can see now why this is happening. And I feel like this graphic here is another way to do that too, right? So that's what I see.
And also just gather some signals and have people talk and point to things. So the principle of effectiveness, also the that just grows and has people drawn in. I think that's common phenomenon across everywhere in any organization today. So, does anyone want to share something maybe more concrete?
I had a question.
Yeah, please.
For the goddess, it's not quite clear to me how decontextualization, centralization are linked. It seems to be very obvious in your kind of perspective, but I don't see the connection. So if you can make it more clear for me.
Oh yeah, sorry. So if you think about it for a second, if we're talking about agency and autonomy, I think ethics is a balance between agency and autonomy, and being given a chance to consent to whatever it is that's happening, right? So the rabid decontextualization removes your ability to properly consent to anything, and then you're sort of opted into any number of centralized systems. Like, I don't know how many degrees you have, but I remember hearing Marshall Rosenberg talk about how he went through like 20 plus years of formal education and was never one time asked how he felt about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just assumed, and so there's just many things like that where you're just sort of opted in by default, and that is the behavior of a centralized, abusive, extractive system, which is, for me, the role of cryptocurrency is to decentralize all of this stuff, make it accessible to everyone. I'll give you another metaphor. The reason why Hinduism is the way that it is largely because of its decontextualization. So for 1,000 years, there were just people attacking the Indian Peninsula constantly. So they would come in and destroy temples and all kinds of things. So they were forced to actually move their churches into a locked room inside of their own houses. So this automatically decentralized the entire religion and gave it a flavor that other, I think, spiritual traditions really often lack because of that lack of decentralization. So you can see the kind of, just if you look at it from a religious perspective, very centralized sort of Christianity versus very decentralized Dharmic traditions. They have a very different kind of approach to things. So it's also true that, we just, decontextualization is a part of, you'd have to see my whole decolonization talk to really fully explain it, but
Maybe
I got it.
yeah, like if you have a central solution, but in many different local environments, those central solutions would rather wreak havoc. For example, that's sort of decontextualization. So if it's okay with everyone, or if someone needs to jump off, please don't feel trapped. But if it's okay for everyone, I'd like to go for another 15 minutes or so, just that we get to the work areas. And with this, the principle of effectiveness, the principle of empiricism, it's funny, Steph, you put the dot in there as well, learn fast, make sense of things, and navigate complexity as effectively as you can. Sure, why not? Give me that pill. But maybe we just take these as areas that we want to focus on, and but obviously no recipes there. We are going to find our own style. But it's good to see where people want to focus. Oh, wait a second. There's one. Yeah, this one I was curious about. Principle of equivalence. One put a dot there, and it would be great if that person would explain, because I think it is an important one, and one I was actually thinking about. Yeah.
I actually put it there, but I was just thinking about
Cool.
all my friends that I'm bringing into Omega, and I'd love it if they felt like, even though they're new, they could engage with us and share their knowledge with us in figuring this out together.
Cool. Thanks for pointing it out again. Like, I think it's it goes to the what Steph mentioned and so on. It's super hard, but it's definitely worthwhile. Don't let people fall off the cracks and hurt themselves. It's super important. How to improve that?
Yes, so, finish your sentence and I'll continue.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Yeah. My experience is I'm relatively new, and I'm trying to find how to fit in and how to contribute, but I still haven't found the process. I'm still not clear about the process that I have to go through to actually contribute something. I know what needs to be done, but because I'm used to different ways in the other spaces that I'm in, haven't figured out the process here. So this might be an issue of not of transparency. I don't know where this fits actually in all of these different.
Just to lift the mystery there, we don't really have a process, but we need one if we are in execution mode, and I think we are there for some parts, definitely. And we need this, execution mode and the sense-making mode in parallel. But clearly, if we know what it is that we want to do with the library, things are becoming super clear, right? Then we really need to have break things down and so on. Again, maybe we can play around with the principle of effectiveness, where we can still have place for emergence and improvisation still, and not just do task after one other. Maybe just have room leave room for innovation and doing things differently there. But I believe we are at a stage where we do have, where we can now have bounties and proposals and what have you. But again, I would love, and not everyone has to be on the how can we make things differently so we don't end up with the same result over and over again area. But I know that a few people are also interested in that area. So in parallel, to all of this doing and contributing, I would love for us to actually really question the way we do, the way we incentivize doing. Yeah, and that's why also Jean's intro this evening with this dynamic energy budget. But that's again, it can be in parallel. When we move to the next board, the work areas, just for you to have an overview, now that we have this overview. So if you are all in 3A work areas, again, in the beginning, we had these questions, how can we enable the token engineering ethos to emerge from such a diverse background across the globe? I have never posed such a broad question in my research career. However, we had people come in and actually help here and there and nudge, and we found actually a nice process. In the process also, many people contributed from the start, and newcomers came in and have picked up and so on. So it did work for some, right? So it did work for the people who helped actually, that we're here after 10 months and can say, this is the working group Omega's groundwork is we're doing surveys, we're doing focus groups with token engineers, we do research, have invited guest topics, and all in all, we do sense making in this complex arena. And we have these things have happened, like we had the community survey just once. It was very haphazard. Everything was very haphazard, but it was just, do experiment, figure out how it might work and what skills we're lacking so we can know what to ask for, right? And then we knew that we need social scientists, and now people are coming on board. Lydia is applying with the research center to come on board to actually accompany us as an anthropologist. That was the dream, right? So these things wouldn't have happened if we hadn't started with the direction. So we had the survey. Again, there can be multiple and follow-on surveys, and we need them to figure out where token engineers are and participants in token networks are. We have the initiative, Token Engineering Consilience, the living library. It becomes more living because of all the ideation that happened in chat asynchronously, maybe. And Matt, Letty, Nick, you can tell much more about how this initiative is working and how people can contribute, because you've been, you self-selected and you've been leading that initiative. We have the other initiative, Token Engineering Ethics, as participatory research that started with a focus group on ethical dilemmas. Focus groups are participants of 5, 6 at most, and they come from the trenches and actually exchange on these ethical or on these ethical concerns. And we follow it, we analyze it, and from that we extracted until today 4 ethical principles. And interestingly, one of them is enable informed participation. And that is something that the initiative, the Consilience Living Library, designed for encounters with peer learning and curations by interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary researchers can enable. And Matt presented last week as one of the first research topic proposals how parameters and mechanisms affect behavior of participants and the morality, or to look at this from a moral lens, which is, exactly the type of research topics we should have ongoing so we can make or help token engineering ethics, the principles emerge via exchange with the people who are who are in this situation. So it is this the aim for hyper contextualization, and not sit and do just desktop research and come up with something that sounds good, right? But token engineers might not even be relating to. So really getting these out from the participants, that's the goal. But then we also have, the content that needs to be put together, written mostly, right? The communication, if people don't know what we're doing, they probably don't know about that there is a group really deep into, making token engineering ethics owned by every participant, and what type of call to actions we need so that more participants join either the working group and or the focus groups or the consilience library as learners or as curators and so on. So that loop definitely needs to be closed, and that was also what Nick recently put out. And then we have the administrative work that needs to be done if we want to get funds from Token Engineering Commons. So moving proposals to conviction voting process that requires us to have wallets and tech and XDAI and what have you. Then managing the budget and managing the work through dework and bounties and so on. So that those things need to be done, and we have not touched it at all till today. So these are all the work areas that people can contribute. And what I wanted for us to do at the very least, like newcomers, so here are basically the colored post-its, right? You could just think about where you want to contribute, or also where you have contributed. You can start with this. You have to copy those so people can make copies of them. But I would say take your time at this. I would say really let's make a pause here. If there are questions like what do you mean, then let's have those questions so everyone knows what is the next thing that we want to figure out. Like these are the work areas, either you have contributed or you want to contribute. But what I would love to do is actually the following. If you make a copy of the 3B, let me try copy, and then you paste it somewhere here. Yeah, it works, right? And then I go in and write my name on it so everyone knows this is me. I will be putting stuff in there. Okay. Then I would go and make a copy of these post-its, and I have contributed some places, right? Copy, and then I put it here on so now I can go introspective, retrospective, and just think about all the work that I have contributed in different areas and how I think, and now every one of you as well. Oh, don't move it. Control Z. So if you copy the master in the grid, the 3B, that one can be copied nicely. Okay. So I'm just going to share, what is it that we might see if everyone does this? There will be things where I say, okay, that was a simple one. For example, after these sessions, we have the next day the community update. And since it's super fresh what we're doing, I just write a summary, and maybe we already have identified some things for next week. I'll just, write that. and actually anyone could be doing that, for example, right? So it's relatively simple. It's certain. I know what I have to do. We have agreement what needs to go in there. It's an update from the past week and what people can expect next week. Sometimes it might be more difficult and so on, but it's doable, right? But then, for example, chaotic, complex, but actually stewarding, especially Omega, according to its principles, of non-interference almost, but keeping the purpose alive. That's been super chaotic, but also super rewarding. Like these are the things, right? And what is complex? Something complex is you have, like, maybe stewarding is more complex because we know the principles. Yeah, that was it. We know the principles and we know what is it that we want, but we don't know how, or the way to get there is not simple. It's not standard procedure. That's a complex task. Chaotic was the beginning of it. Really, what are we even doing, right? The research part of it, getting the research questions out, the method, finding methods. These were the chaotic times, and so on, so. And yeah. And for those who basically just want to contribute, you can have, well, you don't have to, but you can just write your name somewhere and put together your post-it, and basically Unipath, maybe you want to share while the others are already filling their spaces. Maybe I can help with this question of yours that you want to contribute and you have come up with where you might be able to contribute, namely the Consilience Library, with my meta profiles, right? So do you know,
Yeah.
or like, what is
the
the expectance, or what would you do next, or do you know where to go next?
This needs a lot of discussion and back and forth, and I mean, my meta aspect of it, and it is something that is more manageable. I was speaking more in terms of just contributing to, let's say, the Consilience Library project, just putting some resources there, some text about, let's say, philosophy.
For that part also, we had just recent, not an epiphany, but maybe the direction was, well, all of a sudden we ended up with actually curation per petal, and the transdisciplinary aspect, or the emphasis on transdisciplinarity, is actually that you are conciliating two or more of those petals, right? So there are some not yet, or they are just becoming now clear how we could structure it better, right? The contribution, and and also like how to contribute to the library, and with what. Again, we should do a curation so that we know how it works. In a sense, how is it for the curators? And we can do an Omega curation as a transdisciplinary group. That would be interesting. And the whole, Nick has put immense, not just thought, but actually, user journeys and so on. How could be someone engaging when they want to learn with this library? Could we also have people, mentors, hanging out in there virtually, in a sense, like who could I reach out to if I'm interested actually in this intersection, or in that curation, or in that article that they shared and what they annotated it with. So I guess we just need to continue to make this more clear, that process, definitely. And again, it goes back to the admin work, right? When we break things down into bounties, basically tasks that we want to do, or that needs to be done, that will also be basically a contribution board. Like, and I see things up there, I know I can contribute, and also if it matches my skill set and so on and so forth. Yeah. Okay, I would say the following. I don't know how far you are, but it would be great if you can really continue, especially the ones who have, who have contributed and can assess like what were the things that I did that were simple, that the process is known. What were the things that were complicated or chaotic, and maybe also please make a note if they wouldn't have to be that chaotic or complicated, if you just said we are using these and that processes. So these are the things I would love to concretize or continue with next time. And if you just go to, and continue next time, like how are we working? What are the tasks? What are the types of works we're doing? Which things are standard tasks that we can really just have bounties? And which areas we're doing research? Well, that's complicated sometimes, but it has a standard procedure as well. And how can we define our working style? Which tools are we using, and how are we accounting? Now we're getting to the point, how are we accounting for our contributions, and how do we want to share the funds, and so on. And that's just an invitation. Whoever wants to, from these working group initiatives or the working group in and on itself, if you want to participate in experimenting a little bit with how we organize work and how this dynamic energy budget might help us with actually not just organizing work, but also accounting for contributions, as well as rewarding. That is something that I personally would definitely put some more effort in to make that more accessible. But of course, every initiative, or both initiatives, are invited to have their own working style agreement, if you will. And we need to still come up with how are we handling the administrative processes, like the steward and working group leads, I think that's the standard procedure, but also it is something that we need to organize on top. Okay, any questions with respect to using this matrix? If not, I would say happy locating, and we can continue next week, maybe also we sort before, so that we can actually come up with processes that will work for the simple things. I think we know how to deal with them, but how do we want to actually organize or define some procedure even for the complex parts, or when things shall or are chaotic, when we're in the discovery phase? How do we want to deal with it? Maybe just making those areas explicit also will help people. Oh, okay, I'm in this discovery phase, and it's okay to feel lost because we're wandering. These are the things that come to my mind. So okay, then I would, if there are not more comments, I'd say we meet next week, but this would be great if we discuss or look at these boards and sort them throughout the week, and maybe also discuss some processes that might go well with the areas that we have found, especially to be complex and chaotic. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for participating.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
See
you.
you later.
Bye.
Bye.